Welcome to the Believe in NFL Draft Prospect podcast. Ryan Roberts here, Rise and Draft on Twitter. It is a Thursday, so we know that we are bringing you an interview with one of the best football players in all of college football, returning now that we are past the 2021 NFL draft cycle. We've done our recaps, our predictions. We are now fresh off to 2022 and better horizons here. And I have a offensive tackle who I honestly didn't know too much about before this past season, Mr. Jack Snyder, who is out of San Jose State while watching Trey Walker and Bailey Gaither and Nick Starkel for next year. I kept writing down left tackle, number 55, so I started doing some research on him. Luckily enough, Jack has agreed to join me today. Jack, appreciate you, man, again. Just taking a little bit of time here, man. I really do appreciate it so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. So I kind of want to run this as like a little bit of a career outlook and, just a little bit of your journey so far. So I kind of went back and did some research. Marin Catholic High School. You're a California kid, stayed obviously in San Jose State, stayed in the home state there. So take me through, Jack, a little bit of your recruitment coming out of Marin and why ultimately for you, San Jose State was the best option to continue your student athlete career.
Yeah, I mean, Marin Catholic is how it's pronounced, but yeah, to me, I think how close to home San Jose State was to where I grew up was a pretty big impact because it was kind of the perfect distance where it's a drive home, but it's still like separate if I want it to be.
Sure.
Because, with college student athlete schedule, you're so busy. If I'd gone somewhere on like the East Coast or something like that, I would have been home for Christmas and maybe a week or two in the summer, and that's it. But being in San Jose, I really had the opportunity to go home whenever I wanted to or needed to or anything like that. That was definitely important to me. And then it's kind of funny. I've had 4 offensive line coaches since I was being recruited, but I did get along with the staff really well, and I got along with all the players on my official visit, and those were probably some of the biggest things on why I ended up at San Jose.
And I know, Jack, for a lot of people, obviously you want to come in the perfect world. You want to play football right away in college. I know you were a guy that had the Redshirt Year to begin with. I'm sure that was a huge thing for you, not only acclimating to just being a student athlete, but then also continue to physically develop. Can you talk to me a little bit about how big that 2016 Redshirt Year was for the player that you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely needed a redshirt. I came into San Jose State at about 240 pounds. So that was a big year for me to kind of develop and get to a weight where I can play, and it gave me honestly a pretty good opportunity to be what normally would have been a 4-year, but now with COVID, a 5-year starter at San Jose.
That's pretty crazy to think about that little wrinkle, obviously, with the extra year of eligibility. And I know a lot of guys, I think back to like Ben Barch last year at the Senior Bowl that was talking about like this Gatorade cottage cheese drink that helped him kind of develop. For you, was it more longer process of putting on good weight in like a reasonable amount of time, like incrementally, or was it something where like you had been putting on weight in like a really short amount of time?
Yeah, well, I am a pretty naturally skinny guy, and so I've gained like 50 pounds in a year twice in my life.
Wow.
Once I was in high school when my coaches kind of told me to like that playing in college was a reality, but that I would have to gain weight. I went from like 170 to 220 in one off season. And then my first year here, I went from like 240 to like 285, 290.
Wow.
The biggest thing for me was probably peanut butter and jellies and milk. I drank when I was in college. You can ask my roommates; they'll confirm it. I drank a gallon of milk a day for like 2 months straight.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did it get to a point for you? Like, because for me, like, you get tired of food, you get tired of drinks sometimes. Like, did you not want to look at milk for a little bit there for a few months?
Yeah, definitely. There was when I'm trying to gain weight, it's definitely hard for me. And so eating is definitely a job. Everyone here is like, oh, you get to eat whatever you want. Like, that's great. I wish I could do that. But I was basically just in a state of constantly being full for like a whole year.
That's really funny. I know obviously it's worked out for you because you're now a 2-time all-conference selection. know you started a little bit on the right side earlier in your career, and now you've been obviously a mainstay at left tackle. For you, what was the outlook early on? Did you guys I know you've had a couple different coaches, obviously, that you already talked about, but was there kind of a long-term goal? Was I was always going to be the left tackle, or was it just kind of finding where you fit at the time?
I think at first it was just me fitting in. We had an injury or two, so I was able to step in. And I feel like my first 2 years, I was growing a lot really quickly, as a player in my skill and stuff like that. And that kind of being able to play so young was definitely a huge opportunity, because in my opinion, the fastest way to get good at college football is to play in the games, because there's nothing else that can simulate that. So I was really lucky with the opportunity of being able to play so young. But really, to me, I feel like I can play all 5 positions, and so it was really just wherever my coach wanted, felt like I would give our team the best shot at winning is where I would be fine with playing.
Mm-hmm. And I know for me, Jack, the only games I've seen of you in depth are this past season, 2020. For you, looking back on 2018 and 2019, and you mentioned, you've already started 4 years. Like looking back on your time here, what do you feel like has been the biggest improvements in your game outside of, just the physical development side?
I feel like my technique took a big step this last season in pass pro and the run game. I feel like I've gotten even better with that too. We just wrapped up spring ball, but I feel like those are kind of some of the bigger things for me. Obviously the size helps. I think I've gained about 10 to 15 pounds each season. Nice. But yeah, I mean, if you watch a game, my best game from my freshman, sophomore, junior, and then last year, you'll see a huge progression from that point.
Yeah, and I'm very excited, obviously, for that next jump, because I was very impressed by the 2020. And kind of looking at that 2020, Jack, I mean, we talked about it a little bit before we started. Obviously, the pandemic was looking like for a while it was just going to put a kaput to the college football season in general. Kind of thinking back to the pandemic, working from the spring into the summer, how do you feel like the team, were able to navigate all the obstacles? And how special was it that you not only were you able to navigate it, but you guys had a historic season this past year for San Jose?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I was definitely struggling with all the gyms being closed and just having I probably spent more time on YouTube looking up workout videos than I ever had before, just trying to figure out what I could do. And I actually, a buddy of mine from high school who is kind of into woodworking and carpentry, he actually built me a squat rack. And
wow.
And so I have a wooden squat rack in my living room and I went on and bought a bunch of used weights on Facebook Marketplace. So I was able to kind of simulate a weight room there. And then as far as the team, I think we had a good group of guys that kind of knew that we had work to do. And so the not being sent home because of the pandemic wasn't really time off. People were still watching film, people were still working out. And when we were told that we weren't even going to play too, that the season was canceled, but people were still well, we're going to play eventually. So let's keep working out. Let's keep watching film. And then a month later they said, oh, just kidding. We're going to play and be ready in a month. And at that point, Santa Clara County wasn't even allowing us to practice still. And so right. we had to drive 5 hours north up to Humboldt. Mm-hmm. Live in there, they stuck us in these dorm rooms, and it was quite the experience. Most of the student body didn't even want us there, so we were getting glares whenever we were walking to the football facilities and whatnot. But it was definitely, I feel like it was definitely a good bonding experience having all of us up there, because we had never really gone somewhere for a training camp before, and I think just all we could do is hang out with each other, and so I feel like that was definitely a big part of our success this last season.
Yeah, and obviously we're talking about conference championship season. A big face-off with Nevada. I watched that game, and that was you guys took it to them that day. I thought Nevada had a good shot, and then San Jose State, man, they were you guys were ready to play. And I know the big reason. I mean, there's a ton of talented defensive players as well, but just speaking from an offensive side of the football, Nick Starkel obviously had a big season, transfer quarterback. Talked about Trey Walker before we started, Gaither, the other wide receiver that are both playing in the National Football League. For you, just looking back on how special this offense was, because I know that there were obviously pieces in the years past, but it just seemed like everything was just clicking off full cylinders this year.
Yeah, it definitely was nice to kind of have everyone on the same page and the offense doing as well as we have. We've done it in spurts the whole time I was here. We I remember my sophomore year when we were not good. We were playing Colorado State and scored 30 points in the third quarter of a game, but we just couldn't sustain that, And so last year, and even you saw a lot of it the year before too, when we started to improve there too. But last year, we were finally able to put it all together for the entirety of games, which was really awesome for me to see the growth,
And I know, obviously, technically on the field, you're a senior this past year, but with the extra year of eligibility, you have the opportunity to go back and be a part of the 2022 NFL draft process. Was there ever anything for you, Jack, where it was a good debate on whether you should leave now, go back? Was there an internal, I don't want to call it a struggle, but obviously it's a good option to have. But what was kind of your thought process through making the decision whether to come back?
Yeah, I definitely had to think about it for a little while. Talk with my family, coaches, stuff like that. And basically, really, to me, I didn't want to deal with any of that decision during the season. I didn't want it to be a distraction. So I kind of told myself before the year had started that if I was a guaranteed drafted guy, then I wouldn't pass up on that opportunity. But if there was really any question, that I would come back and take advantage of the extra year of eligibility to get better and give myself the best shot when I do declare to play in the NFL. And so that, even with that mindset, it was still a hard decision, but that definitely did make it a bit easier, kind of just having that mindset,
Yeah, and I know we talked about, incrementally, you've just been improving every year. Take a look at the film from each year, you'll see the growth that you've had. Now for you to not only be, the best offensive tackle in your conference, but to be considered one of the better offensive linemen in college football in general, what is the next step for Jack Snyder to take that next move?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the best thing that I can do is just keep improving, because if, with what I did last year, all the recognition I got is great from I'll probably appreciate it more in a few years, but right now I just there's still a lot of things that I can improve on personally. And if I am able to do that, then I feel like I'll be at an even higher level next season. So I feel like the football will take care of itself there.
Oh, absolutely. And I love to ask this question, Jack, for players. It kind of gives an understanding of what they see as their strengths. Cause I feel like a lot of times you watch players, and I know I did this specifically, you watch players that are either a same physical profile as you, or you play similarly to them stylistically. For you, are there some players, it could be past, present, that maybe you watch closely to try to pick up some tidbits that would help you to improve your game in effect?
There's definitely plenty of NFL guys that I've watched. Joe Thomas is one that kind of is a good example for everyone. He was just he was the best technician that offensive line has maybe seen. And he was kind of in a similar situation as me, where you see him now, he doesn't look like he played offensive line. So
not at all.
So yeah, kind of similar there too, where it's kind of difficult for both of us to keep weight on, stuff like that. And then when I was younger, Tyron Smith was probably my favorite tackle. Just I would watch highlight tapes of him just pass setting and just putting the clamps on people. Yeah, I would say those two probably.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Joe Thomas. I mean, I would make a good argument that Joe Thomas might be the greatest offensive tackle that has ever played football. Obviously, that's a little more, I guess, nearsighted for some people because, being a younger guy, they're going to say, oh, you haven't seen, you didn't see Reggie Slater play and all these types of guys, which I get. But I think Joe Thomas is a great example. Tyron Smith is a freak. That guy is made in a lab. So I think that's a couple of great guys for you, obviously, to emulate to a degree. And I know that we talked about, your physical development, what's going to make you the best offensive tackle possible, one of the best in all of college football. My question for you, now that you guys had the season that you did and you experienced all the success that you had, conference championship and an undefeated regular season, what are the standards now around San Jose State? Have you seen like a big increase as far as like the morale of the team, the chemistry, the understanding of what you guys can accomplish, and what is that next step to setting a bar even higher?
Yeah, I mean, the expectation for us doesn't really change. We've gone into every season wanting to win our conference, and I think like that's kind of always been like the bigger goal. But then just like smaller, like a smaller aspect of it, every week we just want to win that game, focus on that game, And I feel like we did a pretty good job with that last year. But I think just going in with that mindset, where you're not focused on like the big picture for like and just taking things one game at a time is pretty important. And I feel like our team has like watching spring ball this year, and even the shortened spring ball we had last season. I definitely see a difference than in my first few years here.
Mm-hmm. And kind of the last question I have for you, Jack, kind of looking forward. Obviously, I'm a guy that thinks that you're a draftable player. I think that you're going to get an opportunity to play on the next level. For you, how long has that been a dream? And just what type of blessing would it be when you ultimately can call yourself a professional football player?
Yeah, I mean, I would say ever since my sophomore year of high school, really, it's been a dream of mine. When my high school coaches told me that playing college football was realistic for me, that kind of, I hadn't really even thought about college football at that point. But then once that was mentioned to me, I basically went all in, college and pros. So it's been a dream of mine for a while now, a realistic dream, I would say. As a little kid, everyone wants to play pro sports, but I would say since then it was more of a realistic dream. And then what was the second part of your question again?
Just what type of blessing will it be when it ultimately happens for you?
Yeah, I mean that would literally be a dream come true. That like all the hard work and all the late nights, all the workouts, all the early mornings would have paid off at that point, and it would just be a great opportunity.
Yeah. So again, I'm joined here by Mr. Jack Snyder, starting offensive tackle, 40-game starter for San Jose Spartans. Keep him on the radar for the 2022 NFL draft. I think that he's a player that, again, is definitely draftable, and I think that he has a lot of potential. Jack, appreciate you, man. I really, really do. I know it's it's fun kind of reading up on the background, the backstories, listening to interviews, but it's always a lot more revealing to me to just be able to kind of sit face to face with the guy. So I really do appreciate you for taking some time today.
Yeah, of course, no problem.